Most people look at a car wreck and see twisted metal, shattered glass, and a ruined afternoon. I see a story. I see the exact moment the driver looked at a phone instead of the road. I see the angle of impact that proves someone was going 60 in a 40 zone. My name is Robert. I'm 57. For 35 years, I've been a senior claims adjuster. My entire career has been built on one skill: finding the truth buried under layers of damp paperwork, fake tears, and sophisticated insurance fraud. After 30 years in the trenches, I can smell a lie from a mile away. It has a specific scent, like copper and cold sweat. But for 30 years, I was a failure at my own job. I was blind to the biggest fraud of all, my own marriage. I thought I was coasting toward a quiet retirement with my wife, Linda. I thought our boring life, our routine, our silence, I thought that was my greatest achievement. I didn't know that my home was a crime scene. I didn't know that every night for 30 decades, I was sharing my bed with the person holding the smoking gun. Linda and I met in the summer of 1991. She was a hurricane, all energy, bright smiles, and sharp wit. And I was just steady, the rock she could lean on. I took pride in that. I spent 60 hours a week sitting in a gray cubicle under flickering fluorescent lights so she could have the life she said she deserved. I built her a kingdom. The big house in the suburbs with the wraparound porch, the rose garden she insisted on, even though she hired someone else to prune the thorns, the weekly dinners at the Blue Marble where the waiters knew our names and I paid the heavy checks without blinking. Every single morning for 30 years, she'd fix my tie, smooth my collar, and say, "Be careful out there, honey." And every morning, I believed her. I thought my hard work was the glue holding our world together. I didn't realize I was just the engine providing the power for a machine I didn't even own. I was the provider, the steady hand. At 57, I was tired. My bones ached and my eyes were weary, but I was proud, or so I told my reflection every morning before I left for the office. It started with something as pathetic as a misplaced iPad. Linda had left it on the kitchen counter while she hurried out to her bridge club, the one she attended every Tuesday and Thursday like a religion. A notification popped up. It wasn't a text, it wasn't an email, it was a bank alert. Transfer confirmed, $20,000 to escrow, MV. My professional brain didn't just kick in, it exploded. Adjuster mode, level 5. I didn't confront her when she came home smelling like expensive wine. I didn't scream. Instead, I waited until she was asleep, and I started digging. What I found wasn't just a betrayal of the heart. It was a masterpiece of financial execution. I found a hidden folder in the cloud. It wasn't just money, it was a ledger, a meticulous, cold-blooded record of my entire life's work, my earnings, my performance bonuses, the 401k I had carefully built for our golden years. All of it was being funneled cent by cent into a separate entity. And then I saw the name, Marcus Vance, our family lawyer. The man who sat at our Thanksgiving table and ate my turkey. The man who stood up at our 25th anniversary and toasted to our forever. They weren't just having an affair in cheap hotels. They were preparing for my exit. They were moving my assets piece by piece, waiting for me to hit 60 so they could declare me mentally unfit and take the rest. They weren't just cheating on me. They were liquidating me. I spent the next 2 weeks living with a ghost.
I'd kiss her goodbye in the morning, feeling her skin turn cold under my lips, knowing she was literally counting the days until my bank account was empty. On a Tuesday night, I told her I had a late claim in the city, a warehouse fire, a lie for a lie. Instead, I sat in my Ford 2 blocks away from a motel called the Red Oak, a place for people who want to be forgotten. I watched her car pull in. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a vice. Then Marcus's car, professional, discreet. I sat there for 4 hours in the dark. The rain was drumming on my roof like a rhythmic heartbeat, or maybe a funeral march. In my lap, I held a heavy iron wrench I'd taken from the garage. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wanted to break that door down. I wanted to see the look on their faces when the steady hand finally snapped and showed them exactly what 30 years of suppressed rage looks like. I walked up to the door of room 14. My boots felt heavy on the wet pavement. I could hear them inside, laughing, that high-pitched, melodic laugh Linda only used when she thought she'd won something. They were laughing at me, at the steady old man working his life away for their vacation fund. I raised the wrench. My muscles were coiled, ready to destroy. And then I stopped. I stared at the wood of that door, and then I looked at my own reflection in the dark, rain-streaked window. I didn't see a victim. I saw a man who had been a slave to a beautiful, expensive lie. If I broke that door, I'd be a prisoner of the law, of my own anger, of them. If I walked away, I'd be free. I realized in that moment that I didn't love Linda anymore. I loved the illusion I had built for her. Why fight for a house that was already burned to the ground? I lowered the wrench. I took a slow, steady photo of their cars side by side, the final piece of evidence for the biggest claim of my life. I walked back to my car, started the engine, and for the first time in 30 years, I didn't drive home. I drove toward the coast. I drove until the suburbs vanished, and all I could smell was the salt of the sea. The legal battle that followed was a massacre. I used every trick, every loophole, every dark corner of insurance law I learned over 30 years. I didn't want revenge. Revenge is expensive and exhausting. I wanted my freedom. I let her keep the big house. I let her keep the rose garden and the blue marble lifestyle. Those things were haunted. They were built on a foundation of rot. My friends called me crazy. They said, "Robert, you're 57. You're starting over with nothing in this economy?" I told them they were wrong. I wasn't starting with nothing. I was starting without a parasite. The day the papers were signed, Linda looked at me not with guilt, but with pure, unadulterated hatred. She realized she hadn't just lost a husband. She'd lost her golden goose. She'd lost the engine. I live in a small studio by the docks now. It's quiet, sometimes too quiet, but there are no ledgers here, no fake honey whispered over a breakfast I paid with my soul. I spend my Saturdays at a small easel, painting the ocean. I'm not good, but the colors, the deep blues and the jagged grays, they are real. Betrayal was the fire that burned down my prison. I am Robert. I am 57 years old, and for the first time in my life, the lines are straight, the truth is clear, and the future is finally mine.